Yeah, feel free to get some food if you want. So there's plenty there. So sorry about the late start. I found out yesterday about that class, and they said, "Oh, but we'll be done at 10." And as you can see, it's I'm actually surprised by 10:25 that we got this cleared out. So anyway, wins or successes. Give me some good news. What's happened? What exciting things have taken place since we met last?
You're here in real estate.
Yeah. Nothing? Really?
We had 2 closings.
All right,
Nice.
2 closings. Awesome. Give them a hand. Congratulations. That's awesome. Ellen?
I had 2 people from my SOI email me back and set up an appointment for, well, it was last night and then tonight. So,
Awesome. Good job. Congratulations. Good. Who else?
I got a present yesterday.
Nice.
Nice.
Just from door knocking. For a listing or buyer?
They're gonna sell.
Let's start this one. So good. So sell and buy somewhere else. Awesome. Good. Who else? Good. What other wins or successes? What good things now?
Oh, we just sold the condo, and it was a tough one because the HOA did not allow FHA home loans, and we would have agents call us about it, and about showing them, and we ended up showing them to people that were only eligible for FHA. So we had to, because they didn't read all of the MLS, and I think it's important as an agent is to read the whole thing and make sure you are able to, be preparing for your client.
For sure.
So, but we went VA route
Nice.
for our buyer.
Yeah, so actually, here's the cool thing with that. I know a little bit of the backstory. First off, in fact, let's even back up. Where'd the listing come from?
For me, a FISCO.
Yeah, so it was that was your first
Yes.
listing, right?
Yes.
So she called for sale by owners, got that, and then who's representing the buyer?
Well, nobody.
Well, somebody is.
We are.
Yeah, so they're getting
Yeah,
both
yeah.
sides of the
Yeah,
deal,
they're
which
double-ended.
is a challenge because the other side, the agent on the other side, sometimes isn't easy to work with. Yeah, gets really. Yeah, be yourself. No, actually, I've found it. Actually, that works the easiest when you don't have another agent who has their ego involved. So it's awesome. So.
What was funny was that the agent, when it was a FISBO, an agent showed the condo to this lady, and then she's coming back to us, well, we should be on this list of exclusions, because we saw it. No, because Diane didn't list your name. So she was being really pushy about it, and it sort of was upsetting, like, come on, be realistic. But she didn't, their offer didn't go through
Awesome.
anyway.
Well, congratulations. That's fun. That's awesome. Good. Who else? Wins or successes? What good things? All right, then. Well, so we've got Paul here from Citywide. Any mortgage-related questions? Anything you want to share, Paul, what's going on in the mortgage world?
I know a lot of you. I'm Paul Jolly with Citywide, I'm just across the hallway. Work with a number of individuals in helping close business. I'm really good at closing. We're really good at giving people hope and taking them through the mortgage process to get them kind of trimmed out and ready to go, and giving them the to-do list that they need to keep their eye on in terms of getting the credit listed and so forth. But if you got a moment, just come by and see me. I'd love to visit with you there at the office and kind of take you through a little bit of our process. But like I say, we wish you the best success in your efforts out there, and just let me know how we can help. We've got lots of good people over there, and they would love to be over here too, but I happen to be here today. So thank you very much.
Sure. Any mortgage questions for him? Anything? All right. Cool.
I'm going to go
off the hook. Okay, awesome. So good. Any other just in general questions before I jump into what we're covering today? Yes, Pat. Do you go by Pat or Patricia or either? Because I always want to call you Pat. So okay.
I went to a math class yesterday at the board, and they said 1 in 10 houses in the valley were probably affected
Okay.
So
So 1 in 10 houses they're saying have meth. Okay.
meth contamination. And in another class, I have heard like in South Salt Lake, it's like 1 in 3. How do you handle it?
How do I handle the what?
Well, the whole question, to meth test, not to meth.
Okay, good question. Yeah, so the question, how do you handle, I would handle meth the same way I'd handle radon, the same way I would handle mold, any of those type of things. Essentially, our buyer due diligence form. So as I'm covering buyer's due diligence with the client, what I tell them is this is a list of potential items you might be concerned with. Now, as you read through that buyer due diligence form, one of the things you'll see on there is that is not meant to be a comprehensive list like these are the only things you should be considering, but it's just to give them an idea of some of the things to consider. So with a client, I always just tell them, if that is something you are concerned about, then you should look into getting it tested and doing testing on that kind of stuff. If you're not worried about it, then I guess don't worry about it. But here's the challenge, and we had this discussion, well, I don't know if any of you were in here when we had the discussion, maybe some of you were, but the challenge that we have in real estate in terms of us being agents for people is, what is our job as a real estate agent? Okay, but in terms of, sorry, I should ask that question better. In terms of like, as far as the state's concerned,
Protecting people.
yeah, your job as an agent is to look out for their best interests, right? Here's one of the things that I've learned though over the years is sometimes us trying to do what we think is best actually gets in the way of our client actually even doing a deal. And so what I mean by that is sometimes because we're worried about it, we think our client should be worried about it. But if it was a different agent, it would be a totally different thing that they would be worried about. Do you kind of follow where I'm going with that? Meaning, because it's a big deal to us, we think it should be a big deal to the client, when in actuality, maybe it's not. Or the flip side of that being true too. Maybe it's not a big deal to me, but it is to the client. And so using that buyer's due diligence form is really kind of the best thing that you can do in terms of saying, these are all the potential areas that you might want to look into as part of your due diligence to decide how you want to pursue that. Because, I mean, really, if you look at that buyer's due diligence, they could spend a ton of money checking out every single one of those things. Meaning, and here's what I mean by that. There are some agents who would say to a client, you need to go and check the sex offender registry to make sure there's not a sex offender that lives right by you. Well,
Yeah, there is, I mean.
yeah, there probably is
They
going
walk
to be,
away,
for
you
sure.
know, fine.
But again, my point being, if that is a big deal to them, then they should do that. I don't think it's necessarily our job to go beyond what the due diligence form says. And that's probably the best way to sum up, is to say, these are all the potential things you should consider, and if it's a big deal to you, you could check it out. So in terms of the meth, you know, to me, I don't really care if it's 1 in 3, 1 in 2, 1 in 20. If they're worried about it, they should check it out. If they're not, then I guess don't.
Okay. So Utah standard has changed to 1.0.
Okay.
So they want to test, it comes back with the preliminary presumptive test of 0.8.
Okay. But,
It's below,
And you can clean
Then
up
what?
meth, right?
it's
Yes.
below
So you can
the-
clean it, so.
so yeah, it's below the threshold.
Utah standard.
Very expensive though.
So you don't have to report it, you don't have to do anything, so if you do.
How about if it was,
So I'm still not sure I understand the question. So if it,
It comes back, I mean, they don't know anything about it, how bad it is, how
Right.
not bad it is. From a science point of view, it comes back at 0.8. For the state, they consider 0 to 1.0 the same.
yeah, so from 0 to 1 point, okay.
So how do you, as the seller agent, how do you approach them? How do you approach the buyer?
So again, just I present the facts is probably what I would say. is what you want to do, is just present the facts to them. Let me turn this off now. Present the facts to them in terms of that. Now, meaning like, are you saying should we disclose it or not? Is that what you're asking? If we're on the seller side? Or
That's in there too, because you don't have to disclose any, as agents, we don't have to. But there was a lawyer in the class and he said, whoa, I'm gonna win that lawsuit.
That can go both ways. So if you're 0.8 or under, or whatever the threshold is, if you do disclose, you're in still breach of your fiduciary responsibility to your seller, potentially for the loss of the sale of the property. You gotta tread a real fine line when you're dealing with that. If it's been tested, disclose, 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 disclose. You let your sellers know exactly what their obligation is. If it was me, I would suggest they get it cleaned and then have it tested again. And the reality is it can be extremely difficult to get rid of or extremely simple. Okay? It can be neutralized with Ajax if it's low levels. So it can be extremely cheap if it's under. But knowing where to do it is a different story. Most of the times they're tested within the cold air return. So you really have to know what you're dealing with. Are you talking about it having it tested before you list? Is this where you're going with it? Is a question I have in my mind. Or is this something that a buyer has done? Because if a buyer did it and come back, problem solved. They already know. So really, your fiduciary responsibility you have with your seller has to be kept intact in accordance with the law. And that's where we go, to the law.
But the law is so
Doesn't matter, it's the law.
ridiculous. It's
Doesn't matter. It's the law. Your fiduciary responsibility has that responsibility up where those thresholds are. So if you're having it tested before, be prepared with your buyer, with your seller, that if any is found, in my opinion, clean it. It's that simple.
I would agree. If it's
But
found,
any is zero, because you
Yes.
can have it cleaned to zero, or any is 0.999, because the state considers 0.999 zero.
That's true.
It gets
Um,
very crazy.
I think we as agents get too caught up in making a decision for our
There you
client.
exactly.
And this is all bogus because we make our job too hard.
Exactly.
We're not the decision maker, we are just there to help guide their process.
Perfect.
They are the decision maker.
Perfect.
So take that hat off because it's gonna get you in trouble.
Perfect.
I was gonna say something along those lines, and then, you know, you look at other states, and all the other states have different levels that they've determined. So what is the healthy level? Well, it's up to the buyer. If it's a certain level and they really don't care because the state doesn't care or whatever, then don't put that on you. Just focus on what our job is to disclose and to honor what they want to do, and we're just representing them. That's all we're doing.
Yeah, I love that. Just ultimately, it's your job is to provide information. They make decisions.
How much does a med cleanup cost?
Depends on how
Yeah,
bad it
depends
is.
on what it is. Yeah, could
If it's a
be.
cook shop, plan on tearing out sheetrock.
Yeah.
It's that
And
bad.
the house might have to be.
Yeah,
Can be.
could be. Yeah,
Can
could
be.
be huge. All right. Any other questions before we jump into the lead generation stuff? All right. Here we go. Then we're ready. So here's kind of where I want to start with on this. I want to kind of get into. We're going to get what my plan is we're going to talk about all the different ways you can generate leads. And so this is actually going to be a 2-day class because we're going to spend some detail on each of the things. But before we get into all of the ways that you can generate leads, I want to kind of give you guys even just a little bit more background of some things. So this, what I'm drawing here would be the learning curve. Okay, you guys have seen me do this before, but I don't think you've seen me do it to the extent I'm going to take it to right now. So this is the learning curve, which would be half of the bell curve. I've actually just read a really, really good book. It's called Mastery. It's one that it's hard to find, actually. You have to, well, when I say hard to find, I define hard to find as like if I go onto iBooks and they don't have it. So when I say hard to find, I don't know if you can even actually purchase it new anymore. It was one I went on to Amazon and just bought a used copy, somebody asked me where I got the book from, and it has a sticker of the person who actually sent me the book in there. So anyway, but it's called Mastery. Now, here's one of the things with that though. In this Mastery, is it talks about anytime you are mastering any skill, it doesn't matter what it is. What ends up happening is we go through this long period where we're working on this new skill and nothing is happening. Meaning, we feel like we're practicing, and nothing's coming from it. Let me give you an example of that. So I coach a 7, 8, and 9-year-old baseball team. So I have a son who's 7 that's on that team. So they're 7, 8, and 9 years old. Some of the kids that are on there are returning players. A bunch of them are first time being on my team. Well, one of the things the skills that I work on with these kids is in terms of their batting. That's kind of just something that for years and years now has been a fascination for me, is being able to break down the mechanics on swinging a baseball bat, hitting a baseball, and what those proper mechanics look like. Well, so I have got, one of the challenges with me is I have 3 boys. So I have a 20-year-old, 15, and a 7-year-old. And all 3 of them are very gifted, talented, what's the right word?
Gifted or talented.
Talented individuals, yes. But so because of that, like when I've taught them how to swing and we've gone through it, they just pick it up really simply. And so now as I'm coaching these younger kids, so my 20-year-old, I started coaching him when he was little. When I was coaching like his age, I had all the patience in the world. But as he got up into high school and stuff, and then I had to drop back down into now 7, 8, 9-year-olds again, I don't have as much patience. But so my point is I have to remind myself, and you're going to have to remind yourself this same thing as you are getting your real estate career going up and going, is in this path to mastery, along the way to mastery, we have a lot of time where this is happening. Like I'm working, I'm prospecting, I'm making the contacts, I'm doing all those things, but nothing's happening. But then what happens, and what I was reading about in this book, is what happens with mastery is we have these little short spurts where like we work on it, and then all of a sudden it just takes off. And that same concept happens with you in terms of real estate and making contacts and prospecting as well. So this is the learning curve, which is half of a bell curve, okay? So if you were to get to this point up in here, and I probably didn't draw that exactly right, but somewhere up in here is where mastery would take place, is we've mastered this, okay? So as we talking about mastery and things growing. So this section right here, though, is the steepest part of the learning curve. But as we go through this process, and I'm going to give you a little bit of background even more on this as we talk about this and go through it. But this process is broken down into these different categories in terms of you and prospecting for real estate, okay? So the very first phase that you're going to go through is what we would call the activities phase. Activities, I'm spelling it wrong probably, but activities phase. In the activities phase, I know, you just put a whole bunch of things, it just looks like it. I know, exactly. Look, if you can't spell a word more than one way, you're not very creative.
Really?
That's what Abraham Lincoln said.
Was it Abraham Lincoln that said that?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, I'll start giving him credit. Anyway, so the activities phase. The activities phase, what would be the activities phase for you guys?
Door knocking.
So I would say it's not even door knocking, it's before that.
Going to this class.
Yeah, perfect. One of the things that's part of the activities phase would be coming here. Good, what else?
Role playing.
Planning. It's like, okay, I need to make a flyer. I need to learn, and for you guys, a lot of this is going on is like, I gotta learn how to get onto 21 Online, and I gotta learn how do I make a flyer, and how do I get this, and how do I get a key to the office, how do I get my email set up. All of those things are the activities phase. During the activities phase, how much money are you making?
Nothing.
$2.
Yeah, unfortunately, how did you do that?
$2.
Where'd you get
It was incredible.
It was,
The rush.
oh, it was for what I'm forgetting to do right now, which I should have done, but I guess we'll wait till
Placing
next
your
week, is
bets.
the accountability. You can make a lot of money off accountability if you get the right partner that doesn't follow through, right? So anyway, the activities phase, that's all the stuff getting ready to get going, okay? So we don't make a lot of money with that. Now, don't hear that that's not important though, because like one of the frustrations that I have, I'll just be honest with you for a minute. One of the frustrations I have with some of the new agents, not you guys, because you're here, but with some of the new agents is they like start to get some business and they quit showing up to class. And then what happens is along the way, all of a sudden they start to do a deal or they need some help with this or that. And my frustration is they're not showing up to class, which this is why I'm saying it's not you because you're here, right? But they don't show up to class, but then they show up to Rick or to me or Dave or one of the other brokers saying like, panicked, I need help with this and I need to know how to, how come nobody ever taught me how to do a CMA or whatever, and it's like, well,
We covered that.
yeah, we just barely did that class last week and you didn't show up, right? I mean, so my point in that again is the activities phase is important because, it's the story of sharpening the saw, right? We got to stop and take some time to sharpen the saw so that we can be effective when we're out doing those things. So don't hear me saying this isn't important, but I do want you to hear that you can't spend all of your time doing activities phase or you'll never make more than $2, as Timber said, right? So the activities phase. Next step along the way is the contacts phase. Now, let me tell you a story real quick about this in terms of the contacts phase. In terms of the contacts phase, now, when I first started, so I've had my license for a little over 20 years, just barely, but I mean like 2 months over, but 20 years. When I started, the company that I was with, we were a big Mike Ferry company, similar to how Century 21 Everest is. And one of the things that Mike Ferry used to do, now when I first started, he didn't have the numbers analyzer like he has now, to where you can actually figure out for you what your numbers are. So back then, he just had kind of this formula of, if you want to make this amount of money, then you got to do this many closings, which means you got to do this many listings, which means you got to do this many listing appointments, which means you got to schedule this many appointments, which means you got to go talk to this many people. And so he had it broken down into, this is how many contacts I need to make if I want to make X amount of dollars, okay? Now, the challenge with that is we're all different. So it's really hard to say if Dallin goes and makes 50 contacts a day, he's going to make $200,000 a year. And if Chris does it, he's going to make $200,000 a year, because that's just not really going to be the case. Meaning, Chris may be way more effective at getting appointments than what Dallin is, or vice versa. And because of that, he might not need to make near as many contacts. So tracking your numbers is very important in finding out for you what they are. But so for me, here's what happened though. Is I kind of worked the math and said, okay, based on how much money I want to make, that means I got to make this number of contacts. So for me, to make the income I wanted to make, I was needed to do 50 contacts every single day. So I had a lady in the office, her name was Shirley. Shirley and I started about the same time. So we had gone through the training classes, which when I first started, the way they did training was, it was 2 weeks of all day in class, and then it was like, okay, good luck, now go on your own. And we left there really not knowing anything, is kind of how I felt after it. But so, which you can relate, I can see, Rick. So it wasn't very effective because it was all this theory stuff that really didn't have any application. So I left there, Shirley and I said, well, let's prospect together. So Shirley and I, what happened is we had decided what we would do is we would meet at the office every morning, which actually I even had this thought for you guys. I think some of what I'm going to say to you would be a really good idea for a lot of you to do this. So Shirley and I decided we would meet at the office every morning. And we met at the office, and typically what we would do is we would, at about 9:30, we would meet in a conference room. Shirley and I would grab our scripts. We would use the just listed, just sold script, the same exact one you got now. So 20 years ago, we were still using the exact same script. We would sit and we would role play that. When do you plan on moving? How soon do you, have to be there? All that stuff, right? So we'd go through the script. We would practice that, then we would jump in the car, we would drive out to a neighborhood, and in fact, the neighborhood we door knocked was out in Kearns. We loved this neighborhood, Hoffman Heights. Anybody familiar with Hoffman Heights out in there? All the homes were built 1954 and 1955, every one of them. I mean, they're all like almost exactly the same. But we loved that neighborhood because at that time you could go buy one, I don't know what they are today, but you could buy one for $80,000 is kind of what the price was. We loved the $80,000 because they sold fast. So we were like, we wanted to go door knock those. So we would go door knock there, we would pick up listings and then they would sell, pick them up and sell. So we did that. Now, here's the thing though. So we would go do that from 10 until about noon. Our goal was to get 25 contacts from that. And once we were done with that, we would go our separate ways, go to lunch, whatever. We would meet back at the office at 2 o'clock. At 2 o'clock until about 4, or until we got 25 contacts, we were on the phone calling. And the reason we did door knocking and calling was I felt like I was way better at the door. Shirley felt like she was way better on the phone. And so it was kind of like, I'll prospect with you on the phone and you'll prospect with me going out door knocking. So we did that together is kind of how we did it. So I was doing that. I was getting my 50 contacts and I probably didn't get them every day, but pretty close to every day I got my 50 contacts. Well, I had been doing this for about a year and a half when I met a guy who has been a real estate consultant for the last probably 35 years now, but for a long, long time. And when I met him, we got talking about what I was doing in terms of my contacts. And I didn't draw that line very well either. Let me fix it. Make this more realistic for you where this line goes. That contacts phase probably comes somewhere into about here. Okay? So what happened is I met him and we got talking about this and he showed me what I'm showing you right now. And he said, here's the challenge. Is right now you are focused on contacts. So this is going to be a process for you guys to go through, okay? So don't hear, I'm not trying to beat anybody up in any way, okay? But here's the challenge is because you're focused on contacts, if you're focused on contacts, what are you going to get?
Contacts.
Yeah, and so guess what? When I went out door knocking, I was focused on I need to get 25 contacts. So for me, what that meant is as soon as I got a contact, I could finish, once I got to 285, I could be done door knocking. And then in the afternoon when I got on the phone, my objective was like, if I can get 25 contacts, then I can be done prospecting. So guess what I got? Contacts. So the next phase in this is the appointments, which is what he then talked to me about. Is what he said to me is, you know what? What if what you did is instead of focusing on contacts, which now again, I'm not saying contacts aren't important, because I do, as I started this, saying you need to keep track so you can figure out for you what that looks like. But he said, what if what you did is went out prospecting, not looking for 50 contacts? Instead, go out and just look for one real appointment. Meaning focus on, I'm going to prospect until I get one appointment. And I said, okay. And so then what he told me is he said, I want you to do that for a week. I want you to focus on for the next week, you don't go home tomorrow until you get an appointment. I said, okay, I'll do that. And I think he could tell that I didn't really get it because he said, no, I want you to go home tonight and tell your wife, I'm not coming home tomorrow until I get an appointment. And I was like, oh, you mean like I really have to get an appointment? And he was like, yeah, for real, you don't get to go home. So I said, oh, I don't know if I want to commit to doing that. And he said, just for 1 week. What if you did it just for 1 week? And I said, all right, I'll do it for 1 week. So I went home, I told my wife, I'm going to prospect tomorrow until I get an appointment. Now remember, up to this point, I'd been in the business about a year and a half, maybe a little over a year and a half at that point. Now, I had been making my 50 contacts a day, but I was nowhere near making the income that it was projected I should be making based on the number of contacts I was making. So that's my point of, just because you're out making contacts, if you're not doing them for the right reasons and you're not effective with it, it's not going to do a ton for you, okay? So I go out and said, okay, so I go home, I tell my wife, I'm not going to be home tomorrow until I get an appointment. And she said, well, then you better get to work early tomorrow because we got stuff we need to do. So now, remember prior to that, I had been showing up at the office like at 9 o'clock. Shirley and I would meet in the conference room at 9:30. We would be out door knocking at 10. What time do you think I showed up at the office the next day? 7:30. 7:30 a.m. I was there at the office. And guess what I was doing? We didn't have morning ascent like we have here. So I was pulling the expireds, I was pulling for sale by owners. I was like, man, I mean, stop and think, what would you do differently in your real estate business if you knew you couldn't go home tonight until you got an appointment? What would you do? And what? Well, yeah, first thing start, right? Good.
Massive activity.
Massive activity, absolutely. So for me, it was like, okay, if I know I can't go home tomorrow until I get an appointment, man, I was at the office at 7:30. I pulled the expireds, I pulled it for sale by owners. I was ready to go so that at 8 a.m. when it's now legal, to call, I was on the phone calling because it was like, I got to get an appointment today. And here's the interesting thing is, remember Shirley and I would meet in the conference room at 9:30. By 9:30, I had an appointment. I had scheduled an appointment off of making the phone calls, doing some lead follow-up, some of those type of things. I had scheduled an appointment. Now, here was the other side of the coin for that. What this guy had told me is he said, okay, once you get your appointment for the day, the agreement was I had to go home unless I had an appointment. I mean, if I had appointments or I needed to do like a CMA or something like that to prepare for an appointment, I could do it. But if I didn't have an appointment or have something that needed to be done, the other side of the coin was I had to go home or I had to go golfing. I had to go do something that I wanted to do that was kind of like the reward for having gotten the appointment for the day. So 9:30 rolls around. I go in and tell Shirley, hey, FYI, I've already got my appointment for the day, so I'm not prospecting today. And Shirley says, oh, that's a mistake. I don't think you ought to be doing that because look at how little business, that's not how she said it, but you've been doing basically, and now you're going to actually prospect even less than what you were doing. And I just said, it's just for a week, Shirley, just give me a week. I mean, for that week, she gave me so much crap. But here's the interesting thing. There was not one time during that week that it took me longer than noon. I had my appointment before noon every single day because why? I had told myself, I mean, for real, I had told myself, I am not going home till I get an appointment. And so because of that, it was like I totally changed. So what changed? What do you think changed in me when I quit focusing on a contact and started focusing on appointments?
Focus.
Well, for sure focus, but
Your mindset.
okay, good. But what else?
More business.
Yes, all of those things. But
Objective and goal.
yeah, what prior to that, remember I was going and knocking on a door and somebody would open the door, and as soon as they opened the door, in my mind I was putting a tick mark on this is how dumb I was. I should have just taken 25 business cards and once they were gone I would have known I had 25 contacts. Instead I took 26 and had one that I kept tick marks on, which to me back I'm like, I had 26 and one was for tick marks so I could get to 25.
Another 20 cents wasted.
I know, right? So anyway, so I would do that till I got to the 25, but here's my point. As soon as somebody opened the door, they were a tick mark. I was done. I didn't care what happened with the contact. Versus when your focus is on I got to get an appointment, what changes in my language? All of a sudden, instead of they opened the door, I'm done, it was like, if I can get an appointment from Dallin, I can go home. I can stop. So I'm going to be as effective with Dallin as I could. Meaning, in terms of our script, prior to that, I would knock on the door and I'd say, hey, Dallin, we've just listed a home over here. It's on Primrose Lane. It's got 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 2-car garage, listed for $299,900. Who do you know that wants to move into the area?
Nobody.
Nobody? Okay, well, when do you plan on moving?
Well, we're not thinking about moving.
All right, do you know of anybody thinking of buying or selling?
Nope.
Okay, well, here's my card if you need anything, and then I'd move on. Versus now, all of a sudden, I'm like, so how long have you lived here?
Oh, about 3 years.
Oh, really? 3 years? Wow, that's awesome. Where did you move from? Sound familiar? And I went through the whole script. One of the best questions, in my opinion, on that door knocking script is, well, if you were to move, where would you go next? See, if you have asked enough of the other questions, when you get to now, if you were to move, where would you go next? They'll usually tell you if they really were thinking about doing something. So, but my point again being is because my focus changed from contacts to appointments, look at that's the steepest part of the learning curve, which obviously you guys have realized that's the hardest part of this business, really, right? Is getting the appointment. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah.
Natalie, since that for
And
sale
I
by
hung
owner?
up by a buyer yesterday and I completely forgot to ask for an appointment. She said, I'm so excited to talk to you, but I'll call you tomorrow. And I'm thinking, I should have gotten an appointment.
Well, yeah, see, and part of where that I think comes from is because we don't really
Yeah.
know what our objective is. And for me, really, I don't know if it would make a difference for you, but for me, what made the difference is knowing as soon as I get the appointment, I can stop. I don't have to go do it anymore. Now, here's the other thing that I learned along the way that was really actually pretty cool. So I told you I did that for the first year, right? For 1 week. After 1 week, I was like, I'm hooked. I'm all, cause remember prior to that, I was making 50 contacts a day, and I really wish I knew what my number of appointments I was getting from that were, because I really don't remember, but it was small. I'll bet you in a week I was maybe getting 1, maybe 2 in a week, versus all of a sudden I changed it to I'm getting 1 every single day. I started getting 5 appointments a week, which here's the cool thing. The magic is in setting the appointments. If you could schedule 6 appointments a week, now hear me out right, schedule 6 appointments a week, you could schedule 6 appointments with the wrong people and you'll accidentally do a deal. Meaning like if you consistently do it, not just 1 week, but if you week after week are scheduling 6 appointments a week. Now remember, I'm saying scheduling. When I'm saying scheduling, that doesn't mean that the actual appointment even actually happens. Because you may, in your pre-qualifying, decide not to go, or they may no-show you, right? I mean, does anybody ever have that in real estate? Somebody schedules an appointment and they don't show up? Okay, good. It wasn't just me, Rob. Thanks. I'm glad. I was a little worried. So, yeah. It's like I don't even care. That's what I learned is I didn't really care. Now, here's what's interesting to me. When I did that, when I switched to doing that, to saying I'm just going to schedule 1 appointment every single day, I prospected half as much as I had been. So I did half as much prospecting as I had been doing, and my income doubled that next year. Prospecting half as much. Anybody like that idea? Yeah. So, and then here's the interesting thing. The next year, I doubled my income again, and I didn't change a dang thing. I was still only scheduling 1 appointment every single day. The next year, it didn't quite double again, but it almost doubled again. And all I was focused on was scheduling 1 new appointment every single day. Now, had I wanted to take my business to the next level, which looking back, I kind of wish I had done, but at the time I just was complacent, was then what you do is say, now instead of just scheduling 1 appointment a day, I need to attend 1 appointment every single day. If you had to attend an appointment every day, what would you have to do? Set how many?
7.
For a day?
Well, no, a week.
No, if I was going to attend 1 every single day, I probably am going to need to schedule 2, maybe even 3, right?
Okay.
Because you're going to have some of those that fall through either by you not going or whatever. But here's what I'm telling you. If you want to, how many of you were at Summit yesterday? Okay, remember Justin Udy up there in the quarter? How much money did he make over?
Quarter.
Yeah, and in fact, one of the lenders from Citywide was sitting next to me. He leaned over to me and he said, "Is this last year's income?" When it was showing like how much money people had made. And I said, "No, that was for the quarter." So 200,000. I would guess, I don't know, I probably should ask him, but I'll bet you he attends 1 appointment every single day. I mean, maybe 2, but I would guess he's on average 1 a day is probably where it's at. And I don't know, do you know, Rick, how many he does?
Well, I can tell you this, the 200 is him, not the entire team.
Right, yeah, that's just
So
him.
that's the difference. I mean, you think about the generation, and yes, it's,
Yeah, I'm gonna have to ask you because this is for the next time I teach this class. But anyway, so my point being, the appointments is like the magic recipe for this business, if you didn't already know that, right? So, and that's the steepest part of this learning curve. The last step over here then is what I would call either mastery, you've mastered it, or the transactions phase. Once you have done this, once you're to this point here, what's happening is you have a consistent source of business coming. And notice the steepest part of that curve is going to be the appointments. So why I bring that up to you is I want you to, even though I know this is easier said than done, don't get frustrated during this time where nothing's happening. That was my whole point of that story of mastery, is as you are learning and you're going and you're making the contacts, for the first little while, you are going to go a while with like nothing happening. But all of a sudden, when it does take off, and I've trained new agents now for 12 years, I've watched this enough times, what happens is, if you'll stay the course, keep doing it, don't give up, all of a sudden it just shoots up. The business will take off for you, and all of a sudden, which I probably shouldn't even actually tell you that, because typically the biggest thing that I hear from new agents is, like, I'm too busy. I wouldn't know what to do if I had 4 or 5 deals going at the same time. So, I mean, but that's what will happen to you is all of a sudden you're gonna get a ton of business that just takes off and gets things really rocking and rolling for you. So, what questions so far? Nothing. Wow.
Russ, is there,
I thought, Evan, when you were coming in to like be part of the class, you just wanted something to eat, huh?
oh, yeah.
No, you're good. You're fine. I'm okay with that. Go ahead.
So at what point do you see it smoothing out for most agents in your experience over the years?
So when you say smoothing out with
Well,
tomorrow,
when you get to mastery and you're doing, I don't know, 5 to 10 transactions a month, does it get easier in your opinion from the? I know the answer, I just want these guys to hear it.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Part of where your stress comes from that is like, so Natalie, this is your first under contract, this listing,
Yes.
right? For you
Yes,
personally,
for
when
me,
David's had
it
one.
is the first one.
And like, typically what happens with people, what I've observed is something that would for Evan or Rick that's been in the business for a while, that for them getting a property under contract, I mean, how much time do you spend, Evan? I'm really gonna just welcome you to the class by just picking right on you. Once you get a deal under contract, how much time do you spend like doing the paperwork to turn it in and all that kind of stuff?
None, I turn it over to my assistant.
Yeah, see that, so,
Yeah.
but as a new agent, I'll watch some of you guys like spend an entire day, like looking it over and, okay, I gotta make sure I didn't miss a signature, and is this really right? And I mean, you'll spend a ton of time on it versus as you get the business going, one of the huge benefits we have here is the transaction coordinators where, yeah, you can either turn it over or as you get busy enough where Evan's at, you hire an assistant. And in the activities management class, I'll cover like when you know you need to hire an assistant. There's a formula to figuring it out and I'll help you with that. But my point being, so, and to what Rick's talking about is really early on, it's gonna feel like it's taking you forever to get something done to where you're like, if I had 5 of these going right now, I would be in trouble. When in reality, no, it's not that hard, right? So go ahead.
One thing that I found in my early years, and I've still struggled with it, is the roller coaster ride. It's you're getting everything and you're getting it under contracts and now you have to take care of all this business and then all of a sudden you get done taking care of all the business and now you're back down to square one. The trick that you gotta do is do a continuous system that works every single day.
Yeah, so this is what he's talking about, is this, and I'll give you briefly what happens is we prospect, we get an appointment, now we gotta do some prep work for the appointment, we do some of that, we go meet with the client, we're doing all that, we close all the deals, right? And then there's this moment right here, do you know what we call that moment? Is it Pete? Say it loud, you're right, what is it?
Oh shit.
No, say it loud. I don't think Dan heard you. Did you hear what he said, Dan?
I did.
Say it again.
Oh, shoot.
That's not what he said. This is, forgive, but that's the oh shit moment right there. And what is that moment? Why? Because why? Why do we not have anything in the pipeline? Because we stopped doing the most important thing, which was generating the leads and prospecting, right? And unfortunately, what Evan's talking about, unfortunately, when you hit that spot, that oh shit moment, what happens is you also get to ride out the rest of that curve.
Yeah.
Why?
It takes about 3 months to get
Perfect, thanks, Evan. Yes, because the problem is, see, what the work you're doing today is deciding how much money you're going to have 3 months from now. And for some of you, it might even actually be 4 months to get it really going. But so every day that you put off prospecting is also another day down the road you're putting off a paycheck. Does that make sense? So in order to avoid that, we got to keep prospecting. And that's where, to me, the transaction coordinators are way worth the money.
Also, you're setting yourself up for mistakes. Because if you get too dependent on a deal, you'll make mistakes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we get so dependent on that deal that we get emotionally attached to that deal, and then we will make mistakes along the way. So, good. All right, good. Any other questions? And I don't know if that answered your question that you wanted me to
No, it does. I mean, I think it's really relevant what he's saying here. Everybody goes through this until they figure out that your schedule is one of the most important things you'll ever have in your business. So put your schedule together. Your prospecting becomes such an important part. No matter what, deals will fall apart. It's going to happen. But you have to have that consistency in your prospecting without question.
Okay, good. So here's what I want to do now. This is where you guys get some participation. What I want to do now is I want to make a list. We're going to actually make 2 lists here of possible ways that you can prospect. I want to talk about every possible way you could think of. So start giving me ideas. How can we do it? Okay, Rob?
In addition to door knocking, attending networking events.
Okay, so we already talked door knocking. So I'm going to throw that up here. So I'll say door knocking. Okay, and then over here I'm going to say networking. I should have Timber come and write for me. I'm just teasing. Okay, come on. What else? What else can we do? Alan?
Daily life, handing out your card to everybody you see.
Okay, so I'm gonna
3-foot rule.
3-foot rule.
what did you say? 3 foot rule? Who said that? Oh, Pete, what did you say? 3 foot rule? I'll call it that. That sounds good. What's the 3 foot rule?
Oh, I thought it was calling them. Anybody within 3 feet of you, tell them your elevator pitch.
Okay, good. Yeah, anybody within 3 feet of you should talk to. Okay, good. What else? What are other forms of lead generation we can do or prospecting? See, I call this lead generation because that sounds better than prospecting, right? Say it again.
Internet.
Okay, internet.
Past clients.
So
FISBO. I'm gonna SOI and past clients I'll put together right here because that really should be. Okay. Somebody said expired. Okay, keep going. What are other ways we could generate leads?
Open house.
Okay.
Flyers.
And when you say flyers, what do you mean?
mailers.
Like, yeah, do you mean as a mailer or?
Going around and putting out on doors.
Okay, I'm good with that. We'll just leave it here with door knocking still, because that's really what it should be, right? I mean.
What about like the sign writers? You put on your signs that you get your details.
Okay, so sign call. I'm gonna just put that as sign calls. Because sign calls could be either them just calling off the sign or using the writer. Perfect. What else?
Referrals.
Okay. And when you're saying referrals from.
Well, like a client or even just somebody in your SOI referring you versus somebody that you talk to directly.
Okay, so referrals could be really still part of this really, but I'm gonna put it up here anyway, because if you're not working your SOI, it won't work yet. What else?
Farming.
Farming? Okay,
Attorneys.
do you guys know what farming is? Does anybody not know what farming is?
Picking one area and just beating it.
Yeah, so typically what'll happen in farming is and I think a lot of times this is how the public thinks that you work, is that like you're assigned a territory. In fact, there are some agents, there's one in particular I know, that works in a high-end subdivision, and you know who I'm talking about, right? Thinks that they own, like that neighborhood is hers, and nobody else should ever list a property in that neighborhood, and if they do, she's mad at them because that's her. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
You know who I'm talking about? Yeah. Alright, anyway, so yeah, farming typically is just like, you do? Yeah. Which neighborhood? Well, never mind, don't say. Yeah, you're right. You know who I'm talking about then. Alright, so yeah, but farming typically is just like saying, okay, this is my area and I'm gonna work only this area kind of a thing. And then you go there over and over and over and over and over again. Which with some tweaks to that, I'm okay with it. But anyway, whatever. But the downside to this, it will work. The downside to farming is it takes a really long time before it starts to work. Meaning like you're 18 months to 2 years before it starts to work. I had a lady actually that started to sort of farm my neighborhood. All she would do was mail a flyer though. She didn't ever go knock on doors. And for like 3 years, I watched her month after month do a mailing to my neighborhood, mailing after mailing after mailing. And she finally got a listing after 3 years. And it was overpriced and never sold. So that was a good use of her time.
You got it
right?
afterwards.
Okay, good. What else? What else can we do?
NODs.
Okay, so NODs, you guys know what that is?
No.
Notice of default.
Okay, good, yeah, notice of default.
Oh, yeah.
So what happens is when the banks are going to foreclose, they have to file that notice of default, right? So you can get from the title company the notices of default. Well, I'll come back to that in a minute. Okay, what else? Evan?
Networking.
So, oh yeah, we got networking.
Oh,
Yeah, good. Networking, for sure. What else?
10th District Court, receiverships, bank companies. I'd go on for a while, Russ. I don't know if you want to put all those.
No.
I'll shut up.
Yeah. Yeah, shut up, would you? Yeah, I don't want them chasing banks yet. I don't want to go after that yet.
get into niches.
Okay, say more about that.
Meaning that if there's a certain area, that's the reason why some of the agents do so well. When the short sales were coming into play, I tried to get in there beforehand because I try to determine what the market's going to do.
Uh-huh.
And I became an expert at short sales before that market came. And so when it hit, those people were willing to work with me over their family members that were agents because I knew a niche that their family did, and they trusted me more than what they.
Okay. So I'm gonna even though it's not exact, I'm gonna just leave that here with NODs. We'll cut it there. I should do slash.
A whole sub list of that.
Short sale, yeah, exactly. Bank, REO. REO is real estate owned. That's what they usually call bank foreclosures, REO. Okay, what else? Let me hear from some of you guys. What else can we do to generate leads? There's still some others that we haven't written up here yet.
Just so.
Okay, it's not up here, but I'm gonna throw that under here. So good, I like it. Just listed, just sold. I'm gonna put that as door knocking. What else? Internet, right here.
Oh, gotcha.
So I'll throw that as, I'll write up here web leads.
Get no phone calls.
Partnering with somebody.
Thank you. That's one of them. So I'm
Calling
gonna,
on the phone.
and who?
Just whoever.
Okay, so I'm just gonna put that as cold calling, right?
Cold calling, yeah. Phone.
Now, just for the sake of making sure that we're legally on this, what do we gotta make sure we do on cold calling?
Do not
Identify.
Check the do not call, not do not disturb.
Not disturb them,
Yeah.
just disturb them.
So just remember, we gotta check the do not call list, right? Do not call list on those, okay?
Well, I have a buyer from the for sale, the sale sign that we put up, and it's already it's under contract, and then she just started talking to me, and started talking to her, and she goes, I like you, but I have an appointment with another agent tomorrow, I'm gonna call you back, and I'm going, oh my goodness, I should have got an appointment, but anyway, something like that.
Okay. Okay, so, which on that, I would throw that as under referrals, cause that was basically a referral, right? Or no, sorry, you said it was a sign call.
Sign call, yeah.
Yeah, sign call, sorry.
Yeah, sign call.
Okay, good, so what else? I can think of at least one more, although we don't do it here, so that's probably why you guys aren't coming up with it.
Calling rental properties.
Okay, yeah, good, renters, yeah.
That's a really good one.
How about builders?
Yes. Renters, builders, good.
Oh, also
How
like,
to-
there's also like the, Infinity, what is that, the name program?
Affinity partnerships.
Yeah, so affinity, so going out and talking to businesses, those type, yeah, to find out about offering programs for the people who work for them, good. So I'll put that down here.
Partnering with other agents.
Okay, so I'm gonna put that with referrals, cause yeah, in fact, when I first started, there was an agent in my office that almost every deal she did was a referral from some other agent. She had built relationships with agents in Park City. Now, 20 years ago, we didn't move around like we do now in terms of real estate, meaning like, if I got a lead that was like in Layton, I had an agent up there that I would refer it to. For some reason today, we'll drive like to Wendover for but back then, for whatever reason, we didn't, I mean, even like Park City, if somebody got a lead from Park City that was buying in Salt Lake, they didn't go do it. It's not as much, at least, as we do now. And so, but with her, she had found a number of agents that she had partnered with, so to speak, of, hey, send me referrals. Same thing with St. George, those type of things. Great idea to partner, get some relationships with some agents there. Good. All right, anything else you can think of?
Chamber.
Okay, I'm gonna put that up here with networking. Yeah. Okay, there's one more that we don't do it, which is probably why you guys aren't coming up with it, but floor time. Yeah, what floor time is at some companies, they have floor time where you can sign up to then any phone calls that people that just call in. The reason we don't do it is there's not a ton of those anymore. Most people now, those show up as internet leads instead of, back in the day, people would either walk into the office or they would call us up to the office and say, I need an agent. Today, people go online and start searching. So, okay, so now we've got,
Also relocation, to be with a company's relocation.
oh yeah, good point. I'm gonna throw that right here. Yeah, in fact, let me speak to that real quick. So relocation, we have a relocation department. To get on a relocation team though, there are some requirements. So the first requirement is there's gotta be space. I mean, because a lot of times agents, how do I get on the relocation team? Well, number one, there's gotta be space. I mean, it's not like that we just have this unlimited number of leads coming in through our reload department. So number one, there's gotta be space. Two, you've gotta be in the business at least 2 years. And then there are some other qualifications in terms of number of closings and stuff like that in order for you to get on a relocation team as well. So just so that you guys know, it's something you can kind of work towards, but probably not gonna get on there. But then when you though run across somebody though, and this is crucial, if you're out prospecting and you come across either through your SOI or door knocking and somebody says, oh, well, my husband's getting a job transfer, those will almost always go through relocation. Which don't hear that means you can't get it. What you want to do when you come across something like that is go up to the relocation department and register that person. If you register them and it does come through, you'll get it. Okay? So even though you're not on the relocation team, you'll still get it because you registered them. And there is a referral fee associated with it, but if you go register them, it's less than if it just comes through. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Well, there's on the front end when you are part of, say, American Express and handle, you're an agent right there of that business that receives those referrals directly. So,
If you're the one that establishes the relationship, is that what you're talking about?
yeah, so that's kind of somewhere that's.
Yeah, and that's where I would say the business or that infinity thing is
Right.
probably where we would.
Also like our, I don't know, what Phil does, because then he if you refer somebody who rents out their property and then he.
Oh, yeah, Phil Blair, yeah.
That's a
refers
good
you
one.
back,
Good.
as a
Mhm.
sell.
Okay, good. Yeah, so good. So as you take it, here's where I want to go with this. As you take a look at these two lists, I have separated the things on purpose into this column versus this column. What does this column all have in common, and what does this column all have in common?
Active
Done?
passive. Active and passive.
Okay, good, yes. So this one's active, right?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, remember in our scripts in here, we talk about one of our objection handlers is there are active agents and there are passive agents. So let's take a look at these. What is the difference? So when we say active and passive, give me more though, Pete. What do you mean by that when you say active and passive?
You're using your energy and going outside to maintain business or obtain.
Okay. Good.
You're
People come to you.
agent. You're not waiting.
Okay, good. Yeah, essentially the difference is we're in a little bit more control in some respects over here in this area than we are in this area. Now, but here's the thing though, there are advantages and disadvantages to both of these columns. Here's what I have found. And we have tracked it and done some studies that I'll share with you on some of these things. And then on Thursday we'll get into even more detail on some of this. But what's the advantage of the passive? I mean, as you look at these things in terms of like internet leads, open houses, signed calls, the floor time, which is again just somebody calling in, what would be the advantage to that, Pete?
Time.
Well, say more about that. What do you mean?
You're not trading hours to get the lead. It's something working whether you're not, if you are or not.
Well, so because when you say time, I guess that where I'm kind of, there's an advantage to the time and there's a disadvantage to the time here too.
People are already looking for a home in those situations, and the other one, you're asking them to consider looking or selling. Like
Okay,
that one,
good.
they're already
Good.
That's what I was gonna say.
Remind me your name.
Jonathan.
Jonathan, that's
That's
right.
what I was gonna say, exactly what you said.
Okay, good, John.
Say, there's a lot of value to doing a lot of those passive things, but there's also a lot of wasted time in a day-to-day schedule. Like if I'm gonna go sit at an open house all day, so I can talk to 3 people that come through, versus go knock that neighborhood and probably network and set up more appointments than rather than just waiting.
Good,
So-
yeah, that's kind of where I wanted to go with it. When Pete brought up time, is that's where I was kind of like, what do you mean by time? Is because the downside to this can be, yeah, do you have control how many people show up to an open house?
No.
Yes and no. I mean, in some you at the end of the day, no, you don't. But here's what I'll tell you: the way, and we'll get into this more on Thursday, so I probably should just wait. But the way most agents do an open house, you're going to have zero control at all, and you're probably not going to have hardly anybody. If you'll do it the right way, and I'll talk more about that. My plan was to do that more on Thursday, to get into more of the detail on that. It can be very good, because here's the thing. 2 different studies that we did. We studied the people who show up at an open house. The people who come in, we tracked them, and for a long time, for over a year, we tracked the people. The people who show up to an open house, 82% of those people will do a real estate transaction within a year. So meaning, what Timber was bringing up is, I like to call them hand raisers. They're people that are saying, well, let me relate it a little different. How do you know who a for sale by owner is? They plant a sign in the front yard that says for sale by owner, right?
Mm-hmm.
The people who show up to an open house, or even these internet leads, is like they've planted a sign on their forehead that says, going to buy, if that makes sense. But in essence, they're a hand raiser. They're somebody saying, I'm thinking about doing something. So the advantage to these is there's a very high likelihood. Now, as I've watched agents over the years go and do an open house, they come back and they say, oh, well, this person, I had 10 people show up, but they were all looky-loos. I mean, what are they supposed to say when they come in? Hi, I'm just buying today. I mean, what are they going to say? Of course they're going to say, I'm just looking, right? But, so, the advantage to these, same with internet leads. I know, Evans, over the years, you've done a lot with internet leads, right? I mean,
I was almost the number one agent in the country for doing it.
yeah, so Evan was part of Zip Realty, which Zip Realty still kind of exists, but not really. I mean, it's Realogy went and bought Zip Realty. And so that he was with Zip Realty, and so that's where he was saying it was one of the top. Do the people who come in through there, are they going to do real estate?
No, not everybody.
Well, no, not everybody, but
There's
you
like,
closed a lot of leads.
oh
off
yeah,
it,
I
right?
closed a lot of, I got a lot. But, yeah, but the ratios are probably around 10%, 5%, somewhere around there.
Yeah, exactly. So here's the thing. So meaning that these can be some good sources. The downside is, in terms of the web leads, you're going to use 80 or 95%, or some that are in that range, that are not going to be doing anything for a while. Now, we did a study on that too, actually, Evan, that I don't think I've told you about. So I used to oversee for a competitor their internet leads for 5 years. And in 2009, we decided to go back to the leads that had come in 2008. So we were looking at internet leads that had come in a year, that were at least a year old. Okay, does that make sense? So they were between about 18 months and 1 year old. So we took about 6 months worth of leads. We went back and we called these people to find out a year later to a year and a half later, had they done anything real estate related. Now, here's what was interesting. Now, let me clarify to you on this, because it makes it even more profound if you understand this piece. We went back to the leads that agents had said they were no good. So we used the lead router system similar to what we have here, but they've changed up lead router a little bit. It used to be that in what is called a cold lead today in lead router, back then was called a dead lead. So we called the leads that were marked dead. So these are the ones that, like, let's say Rob got the lead, he called on it, and then within a week he marked it as, oh, this is a dead lead. Okay? So we didn't take the ones that Evan kept and said, oh, this is a good lead, I'm going to keep working this one. We took the ones that quickly the agent said, these are no good. And so a year later we went through and called them. 50% of those people had done a real estate transaction in that time. So within a year to a year and a half. 50%. So again, they're hand raisers. So the downside though, which is what Pete brought up, is you can spend a whole lot of time and not really get a whole lot with it.
But to be honest, I was saying, like internet, you don't have to waste your time. It comes in if you're working or not.
Gotcha, I see what you're saying.
I understand why that is that way, because when you call those people, most of the time when you throw it away and say this is not, they're already working with another agent, and you can't work with them at all because they're already working with them.
Sure. Yeah, which on that, I'm going to save that discussion for Thursday. So, but yes, thank you. Okay, good. So here's where I want to go with this. Part of where I want to talk about in real estate, there are two terms that you may or may not have heard of, but it's very prevalent in real estate. And one is anecdotal, the other is empirical. What's the difference between anecdotal data and empirical data?
Empirical is hard facts.
Numerical.
Laboratory, numerical.
Yeah, numerical, tested, laboratory, yeah, that type of thing. What's anecdotal then?
Personal stories.
Yeah, the stories we tell, right? Real estate is full of anecdotal stories. And I'm going to give you some examples of it here right now. We're going to take a look at some stuff as we go through this, okay? So, but probably the most prevalent one actually that we have in real estate is about for sale by owners. So I'm going to pull up, I showed you guys the chart for, let me get this going here. I showed you guys the chart. NAR does the study every year. Remember we talking about that? NAR does the survey every year. Well, as part of that survey, I had mentioned to you guys that what they do is they send out this data in July, it comes back in November, or by September, they then compile it, release it in November every year, okay? See if this will be more friendly than it was last week.
Is that better?
It will be.
Okay. Oh, not yet?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
Alright. You there? Okay, good. Alright, so one of the things that they do, remember I said they send this out to just the they go to the tax data to find out, you know, people who have bought and sold. Part of why they do that is they want to get for sale by owners in there as well. Now, one of the things that I'll let you guys tell me. What are the numbers? What are the percentages you've heard of people for sale by owners who end up listing their home? What's the numbers you've heard?
98%.
98%, a lot. What else? What else have you heard? I'm just repeating what you guys are saying. How many?
90.
Wait, what's the question?
What percentage of for sale by owners end up listing their home?
It's high right now.
95. Typically, the number that over my 20 years in the business, the number I hear most is 88%. I know we have a script that says 98%, but typically, remember we're talking about anecdotal versus empirical data here, right? You hear these numbers of 88%, 90%, 95, 98% of all for sale by owners list. And typically when people quote that, they say, according to NAR, blank percentage of for sale by owners in the list. So a while back, I thought, you know what, I want to find this NAR data that says that. So I went on a search for it. The wonderful thing about the internet is like you can go find stuff, right? So I'm like, if NAR has a study on this, I want to find it. So I went out and studied and studied and studied to try to find where it said that, and I could never find it. And so there was a real estate trainer that, this is probably 5-6 years ago, had come in to do a training for the company I was with at the time. And at that training, he stood up and said, 88%, according to NAR, 88% of all for sale owners list their home. So on a break, I waited till a break. I went up to him and said, hey, can you give me a copy of that? I've been trying to find that study by NAR that says what percentage of for sale owners list their home. And he said, oh, yeah, I don't have it, but if you'll give me your card, I'll email it to you. Great, gave him my card, never got it. And I had gone on Facebook and friended this guy on Facebook, and so after I had never gotten anything, I sent him a private message. Again, I'm not trying to call anybody out. I sent him a private message and just said, hey, FYI, just wanted to remind you I want to see that NAR study on for sale by owners. He writes back, says, oh yeah, I'll look through and find it. I haven't forgotten. Great. Never got it. Not, I don't know, 6 months later, I don't know how many, but he put something on Facebook the one day about, you know, we all know 88% of first, he said it, according to NAR, 88% of all for sale by owners list. This time I was like, all right, I put the comment on there. Can you please send me a copy of that? I've never gotten it from you that you said you'd send it to me. Deleted my comment. So here's my point. I've never been able to find it. This is the closest thing that I've been able to find from NAR that talks about for sale by owners. And what this says here, so this is showing back to 2003. Here's the interesting thing to me when you look at it. Well, you guys tell me, when you look at this chart, so this is for sale by owner and agent assisted sales that from back to 2003 to 2015. So if you need to get up and come and see, but what it shows here is in 2003, now all for sale by owners was 14%. Now let me explain that. What that basically is saying is of all the sales across the country that took place, 14% of all sales in 2003 were a for sale by owner. So what does that tell you? See, yeah, so 86% of all the sales that took place were agent assistant, but that's not saying 86% of all for sale by owners.
You don't know what the conversion rate was.
Right. Now, there is another spot in here that does talk about people whose homes expired and then they went for sale by owner. But unfortunately, you guys help me figure it out. Why would it be, how come there's no data, really, there's no empirical data, nothing that you can really prove of how many for sale by owners actually really list their home?
Because for sale by owners not listed.
Okay, good. Yeah.
So you don't know how much, right?
Yeah, okay, go ahead, Rebecca, and then, yep.
Well, that agent assisted doesn't mean that they list the home.
Yeah,
Just
just
of what I heard, and it seems to me that that's the closest the figures going on, and that's not a true representation of what the question is. Because agent assisted, what we're looking at is how many for sale by owners actually ended up listing the agent, right?
Right.
And yeah, I just think it's too much.
Yeah, why? That's exactly what I'm saying. We're saying the same thing. This, earlier in the report, this does say the agent assisted means they use the agent to sell the house. Not.
It could be that the agent was the buyer, agent assisted.
No. That's what I'm saying is that in the survey they explain, if you go that it is just, this is people saying yes, they use an agent as a listing.
As a listing.
Yeah.
Oh.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think it's hard to get that number at first because there's no requirement or anything for sale by owner to say my house is for sale and this is how we're tracking who has sold their home. Because a for sale by owner could be like, hey, think about selling my house, like, oh, I'll buy it, great, done, that's for sale by owner. There's no data to track that was
Thank
for
you.
sale by owner.
Except, see,
Yeah.
yeah, so,
Well, and that's how they get that number.
yeah, that's how they get this number.
The for sale by owner, but we don't know a conversion to a listing because there isn't a baseline figure for sale by owner.
Yeah, does that make sense what he's saying, guys? Because that's exactly right. There's no requirement that they throw it on KSL or any of that. It could be that they just stuck a sign in their front yard, which I had a neighbor that did this. His home was for sale by owner for like 3 years. He stuck a sign out front, and I, of course, as a good agent, I went and knocked on his door and said, hey, I want to talk to you about helping you sell your home. And what he told me is every house I live in, I just throw a for sale by owner sign out front after I've been there for about 6 months. And I just have a number in my head that if somebody will come and pay me that number, I'll sell my house. If they won't, then I'm happy being here. I'm fine living here. But so he did zero marketing outside of sticking a sign. And how could NAR ever know Yeah, so that's the only determination I've ever been able to come to. Now, I understand. Does anybody use Red X? Okay, so I understand. I'm not as familiar with it, so maybe you guys can tell me, and if you can find this, I would love to be able to use the number. But that, like, do they track? They track like once somebody has listed, right?
Yeah, how many days and weeks and months it's been listed.
So, but does it show then a percentage of how many of the for sale by owners then actually did list versus they didn't? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I use a different system that's the competitor to Red X, and essentially I've got this list and it tells me how many for sale by owners there are, and then it'll update once it has listed to just say active, and so I don't call those active ones, but there'll be data there that, you know, I don't have like a number, but I'd be interested now to go and look up. I'm sure they have that number.
Because for me, I would love to find some empirical data, and I had heard Red X did track that, and I was thinking it'd be awesome to be able to say, yeah, 40% or 50 or whatever end up listing.
91.5.
So what it?
91.5.
You like that one? Okay. So, but here's my point. Here's what the couple things I want to point out to you guys on this is, number one, I think, and Natalie's got some empirical data. Is it worth calling for sale by owners, Natalie?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So don't.
It takes time with some people.
Yeah.
Some people just after the first week before sale by owner, they're just like over it.
Yeah. So what I don't want you to hear is I'm not like trying to say don't do it. I'm good with doing it. I just want you guys to know the empirical data behind it, which that when we're saying 98% of for sale by owners list, there's nothing to back that up. That's kind of really more what I want you to know. But as you look at NARs here, the empirical data on it, here's what I love about it. In 2013, 14% of all sales were for sale by owner. Look at where it is today. It's dropped down to 8%. Look at. I'm excited for November to show up, if for nothing else, besides Thanksgiving and all the good food. But is to get this new 2016 report. I'll love it because I think it'll be interesting to see if all of a sudden it's 7%. I mean, this would be a great chart to use with a for sale by owner in showing them, look at what's happened. I mean, to me, I would think, and I was in the business at this time, in 2003, we weren't doing a ton on the internet. I would have guessed, and I probably should have you guys guess before I show you this chart, I would have thought that with the internet being as popular as it is, that you would think that number should have gone up because we just made it easier for people to find a for sale by owner. See, back when I first started in the business, it wasn't like, in fact, Red X didn't even exist. There was a company before Red X that would fax to our office. We had signed up for that they would fax to our office. Here's the for sale by owners. Prior to that, it was like you had to get the newspaper. Agents would come into the office, right, Rick?
Yep. With
their newspaper every day and go through and find the for sale by owners that way. So to me, doesn't it seem logical to you that with the internet that number should have gone up? So why would it go down? Why would the number of people selling for sale by owner?
Legal risk.
Okay. Yeah.
Time.
And I have another question, kind of, because I'm along the same lines. Like, that really is weird to see that happen. Because, you know, if I'm as just a person in public, it's like I want to sell my house. If I'm thinking for sell by owner, I'm thinking about all the resources I've got online, and but then I also think about this market that we're in and how there's so few homes, and my house could probably sell so quickly. So it's interesting. You know, part of me thinks, well, maybe for sell by owners go up because of the way our market is. But that also, this doesn't make any sense, but I know it's accurate, and so I don't know why it is.
Well, and in fact, look, 2007 kind of was the peak, or 2008, and then, I mean, since then, it's just kind of headed down. So, yeah. Well, and I don't know that I have the answer either, other than to tell you, I know that doctors were concerned with the internet because their thought was, well, nobody will need to come and see me. And what has happened? Do you guys know? Yeah, more people go to the doctor.
Because they're scared to
have any
death
of you
of all the crap
have
that's
any of
going
you
on.
gone on to WebMD and tried to look up your?
I'm
Yeah.
definitely dying.
Yeah, you go on there and you're like, I'm dead. I better show them. They end up going to the doctor more. The only thing that would make sense to me is the same kind of concept probably has happened here, is as they go in and research that and try to look up information, what they find is, I mean, one of the great resources that we have as agents that helps is Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey says what in terms of selling your house? Do you need Dave Ramsey?
Agent.
Yeah, you should use an agent. So there's a ton of resources out there of these people saying you should use an agent. Now, here's the other thing that we haven't really talked on here. Look at this. So this, in terms of for sale by owners, if 14% sold it themselves, of that 14% in 2003, 5% knew the buyer, 9% didn't know the buyer. So meaning, like, if somebody knew the buyer, there's probably like almost zero chance you're going to get that listing, right? Unless they just said, come do the paperwork. But when you look at that, to me, that's just interesting of all that. Now, here's the other thing I wanted to show you real quick on this. In terms of for sale by owners, what I'm trying to do is give you guys some ways to help in converting some of these, okay? This chart here, this is the selling price for sale by owners versus an agent assisted. So again, back to the people who used an agent to list their home versus they did it for sale by owner. Now, when you look at the breakdown of all for sale by owners versus all agent assisted, what do you see?
Higher.
What's higher?
Well, the people that use an agent is higher.
Yeah, so somebody with a calculator real quick, do the math of what percentage is this above that. This is where I find out who all the analyticals are.
22%, 22.3.95.
No, don't. He's an expressive. Don't listen.
Is that the price, the median price? 210?
Yeah, median selling price. So let me explain that actually too, because sometimes people get confused on it. The difference between median and average. Okay, average is taking all of them together, adding them up, and then dividing by the number to get the average. Median is saying like right in the middle. We're getting rid of the highs and the lows to get right into the middle. So this is the median selling price, meaning like right in the middle, getting rid of the highs and the lows. So it gets rid of the extremes. Okay. 15.6.
Okay.
So this, so 15, 18 months.
No, because I was right, because I said 8.7, 18.7.
It's a high number.
So.
Yeah, but here's the point. What are they worried about? What's a for sale by owner worried about?
Money.
I love the script for this line where, or maybe it's not the script, it's something we talked about where the line to talk to for sale by owner is, like, all I'm hearing is you want to net the most money. And that just eliminates all sorts, because that's their whole concern is I just want to save as much money as possible, I need to get as much out of the property as possible, and this shuts down any argument.
But I think there are things to bring up to make them like more concerned, like you're not worried about your legal risks, you're not worried about, because there are other things
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
that are, that if people are like, well, it's not about, because some people aren't about the finances, they're about moving or whatever, or
Yeah,
there's time.
Yeah, let's focus though for just a minute on what Dallin said, because here's the key. Typically, if you just showed up without some empirical data and you were to tell a seller, I mean, to me, I think it would be a great report even to show that, look, a lot of times sellers think that with the advent of the internet that it's easier that you don't need me because, again, back to when I first started, we like protected. We had the MLS, it was like, that was why people needed us. And then as the internet started to become popular, which is kind of 2003-ish, was when really real estate started to transition to the internet. And in terms of that, it was like agents were freaking out. We can't give up our information. And when we first started putting properties on there, we didn't put addresses. It was like, we'll put the information, but we're not going to put an address because we don't want them to be able to go talk to the seller. We don't want them to go around us, was what our concern was. It was we were like scared if we give away our information that people wouldn't need us anymore. Yet, what we found is the more information you give them, the better chance you got of capturing.
But I'm doing this property right now. A lot of the homes around are sold for sale by owners. And in Utah, it's a non-disclosure state. So they had to, in all those other houses, I'm telling you, this if those homes could be on the MLS, there would be no problem with that home appraising
And because all the for sale by owners around it are going for sale by owners, they're not documented and not put on the MLS, they lost a lot of money, and that's what's happening to a lot of these people is their houses are actually dropping.
It's hurting them.
It's hurting them all around because they're not using agents and they're losing their value out of it.
Yeah, that's a
Absolutely.
great point. Yeah, absolutely. So, but without this, typically for you to go in and just say, you know, look, a seller as a for sale by owner, it's going to actually, even though you think you're saving money, it's actually costing you money. This NAR shows right here. And listen, I'm not saying that, look, hey, they're a for sale by owner at 210, you could go list it for 250 and it's going to sell. I'm not saying that, but it is important for them to realize, like, if only one person knows my house is for, am I going to get more money for my house if one person knows it's for sale or 10,000 people or 100,000 or a million?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it's simple economics, right? The more people who know about it should create more demand for my property, right? So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Say, Timber, yeah.
Oh yeah, where can you get this?
Oh, yeah, great question. So yeah, if you guys want to get this, it's go to Realtor.org. So Realtor.com is not even owned by NAR anymore. It used to be. It's not now. So it's not Realtor.com. It's Realtor.org. And then you have to log in. If you just try to go buy it without logging in, they're going to charge you like some horrendous price. But you have to log in, and you need your NERDS number, your National Association of Realtors number. Once you plug that in to sign in, then it'll give you the pricing. If you want just the PDF, like what I've got here, it's $20. So every year I just buy it for $20. If you want an actual hard copy, the booklet, which I've never done, it's like $150. Which so you can see why I get the PDF. Yeah, they charge you $150 for the book, where you can get this. Tons and tons of information in here. But
How updated is that information?
so this comes out every November. So this is the November of 2015. This is the most recent version. So they do it once a year, and it's always in November.
Can I get a copy of
Yeah, go to Realtor.org. The only reason I say that is copyrighted, so I can't just. I would be glad to give you a copy of this particular chart. I don't feel comfortable giving everybody the whole thing.
Take a picture.
Somebody else had a hand. I thought I saw. No. All right. So anyway, this is some. My point in that is in terms of prospecting those for sale by owners. Hopefully, this will be able to help you a little bit. So we're pretty much. I'm going to hold off on going to kind of the next subject because it's going to take longer than 8 minutes. So what questions do you? Will you grab the light, Kim? What questions do you guys have in terms of prospecting? None.
So would you suggest like going through and doing all these or just finding a couple?
Oh, thank you. Yes, great question. Yeah, so yeah, please do not try to go do it. I mean, you should try some of it, Jimmy. Yes, for sure. You should try some of that. But no, I'm glad you brought that up because I have watched. Well, because here's what happens. No, it's a very good point. Valid point that Chris brings up. That's extremely good because I have watched too many agents do this. They decide I'm going to go door knock, and then some of you today heard Natalie talk about listing and now double ending it for sale by owner, and some of you are now going like, I need to go do for sale by owners. I know it. And then next class, somebody's going to show up and say, I listed an expired, and then all of a sudden you're going to go now chase expired. So yeah, what Chris, very, very good point. You should actually be picking, well, no matter what, this has got to be the foundation of your business, right? The SOI. Got it.
Can I make a comment on Natalie's business too? That for sale by owner netted more money
Yeah.
with
Oh,
you.
yeah, interesting. Yeah.
So-
$15,000.
With $15,000 more than they had an offer on their own.
It was an offer was like $198.
She's got that story now forever.
Well, and you guys can use it. Use it as
Yes.
an agent in my office just barely listed a property that was for sale by owner. Because what was the price? 2 something?
It wasn't even, it was $199,500.
So
the
15.
price.
So there's 7% right there.
And the comps didn't get up to 215, but I said, David, do it, it's a listing at least.
Oh, cause they wanted 215?
Well,
No,
in fact, along those lines too, actually, I had an agent tell me a story yesterday about 4 for sale by owners that he got appointments with, maybe it was 5, 4 or 5 that he had gotten appointments with, but another agent told him in pre-qualifying, don't go because it's overpriced. All of those properties were listed with somebody else and under contract,
Yeah.
so.
Even if it's overpriced, and that's what I'm trying to convince my
Well,
husband.
but it's not overpriced.
It's not
No,
right.
it's
It's not,
not.
it wasn't.
No, but I said to the couple, I said, if we can make that price, you have to net 200. So David went to the title company, got an estimate of how much we would have to list it to pay our commission plus title and everything. So he showed her the numbers and said, okay, how do you feel 215 and 500 or something like that? And she goes, okay, great. And she goes, do you think you can get it? I go, oh yes, we can get it.
And you got multiple offers.
And we got, oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Timber.
Well, I talked with somebody a month ago or so, and he had his home for sale by owner last year, and through circumstances decided not to sell it. But he admitted to me, like, well, we just put this sign on the street for $325, but we would have taken $300, and I'm like, so you would have taken $25,000 less, but nobody knows that because they drive by, they see the price, they're not gonna knock on your door because it's awkward. Like, nobody's gonna knock on your door and be like, hey, will you take $25,000? That's a huge lowball offer. But he would have taken that, and I'm like, but you didn't want to work with an agent who probably could have gotten you 25 more than you were asking. You know,
Yeah.
it was the most bizarre,
Absolutely.
like,
just don't-
So
mindset.
let me, oh, go ahead, and then I'll finish.
So, only to say that not to be like afraid of for sale by owners, because sometimes people just clearly have no idea what they're doing. Some people are smart, other people are just
Yes.
not.
There was a for sale by owner, and he had already got a contract, and I caught him before he accepted it, and I says, go ahead and we'll work that offer, but they're 3 months out. And I says, let me list it, and see what I can do for you. Well, I listed it, and I netted in far more than what he had already agreed to with that other purchaser for sale by, without an agent, and he was sold.
Yeah,
It was common.
Very common.
Okay, so yeah, back to finishing up what Chris said. Yes, ideally, what I would say is you should pick 2 or 3 ways that you're going to prospect, and one of them obviously being this. So the other 2 or 3 that you choose to feed into this, you know, whatever it is, ultimately they should be feeding into your SOI. But here's what I'll tell you. Honestly, I think every one of these things works. What really is the best thing to do is pick 2 or 3 of the ways that you're going to prospect, and we'll get on Thursday. We're going to get more into detail on some of these things. But pick 2 or 3 of these, and just if you'll focus on it and stick with it, it'll work. Where agents get in trouble. Remember on Thursday last week, I showed you my artistic ability of drawing a car up here.
No, your bike.
My bike, yeah, my bike.
Yes.
Flower.
Up
I
there,
went
the
home
flower.
and redrew it for my husband so he could understand how amazing it was.
So,
It was incredible.
but remember the point behind that, the cars. Remember the point.
I don't know the point. but
Exactly, that's my
actually
concern.
actually
It was a
going-
great commercial.
Actually
but-
going in a bunch of different directions.
Yeah, so the point of that was being coherent in what we're doing, right, versus discrete. That's the same thing with this. If you will market in a coherent way, whatever it is you choose to do, and stick with it, it will work. I don't care what these are, which of these you
Even if
choose,
it's a square bike.
but even if it's a square bike, it will work.
We're gonna have to see
I
this.
can't decide if I'm gonna miss her being in class or you're.
You already told me you will,
I
so
know.
you can't take it back.
So anyway, does that make sense? So yeah, ultimately, you should try some of each of this, but ultimately if you'll pick it and stick with it, especially for sale by owners and expireds, those in particular, if you don't stick with it and you're on and off and on and off, you'll struggle. But if like what Natalie's been doing is she every day, right? On them every day. And it
Learning
takes.
new ways of saying things, I think that's important.
Yeah.
Learn your script and
Learn
then
your script.
learning new
Foundation.
ways of having.
Yeah, and that's the key, is the scripts are the foundation for that. Doesn't mean you're gonna go out and follow it exactly, but it helps you to burn the concept, internalize it to where you'll be able to then go in and use it in your way to where it'll work for you. So anyway, time's up. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add, if anybody's interested in being a buyer's agent, let me know.
Okay, you're gonna get attacked probably here. Alright, so anyway, thanks for being here. Thursday, we'll continue the discussion of all of this. We're gonna get into some more detail on really like how to get appointments and those type of things. We're gonna get into more of the detail on it. So today was really a commercial for Thursday.
Thanks, Russ. Thank you, Russ.
You're welcome. See ya.
Oh, sorry.
Listen, I just gotta leave my card, stuff right up front, you wanna call me.
First of all, it said like, so that was his first picture, and it looks like this.
What?
Yeah, these were the spokes.
So yeah,
You know,
Oh, that's why I said it was a flower. Oh.
This is a flower, square. This is clearly the spokes. I mean,
So-
everybody knows.
Yeah, so.
You know, not
Like on your
like
bike.
this.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
These are not-
just something to make sure you get it set up on your.
Awesome. He's like bike, and these are squares.
Russ, that's not a bike.
Also, spokes. I don't know what kind of world you live in. These are
The
spokes.
point was a hub and spoke
Oh.
concept, the concept of a hub and
That's one of
spokes.
those solid ones, right?
This is, hey, this is the new age, this
And
is
he
the new
pulled
age.
Alan in, and he's like.
Okay, so
a
here's what I didn't finish. If I would've done this.
No, it's so horrible because it's a square. You put another square on the outside.
It just
He
makes.
grew up in the
Russ,
60s.
go home and
so-
practice 50
I-
circles.
no.
50 circles.
Look, I've given up on the artistic
All right,
appeal past
I'll
that.
Oh, hey, tomorrow morning. Do you want me to walk your neighborhood? Can you send me an email? Everybody can stop listening.
Hold on, everybody.
Is that tomorrow, because I wrote you back, but you did not
That's funny.
respond to me.
I know, I've still got my list there.
So that's why I'm
Here,
asking.
what- so you could.
I'd like to know what you
You
would like
could.
to do. I just like to have my plan in place.
Plan.
But
Do
there's
it.
busy
Do
evening.
it.
Okay.
Do it.
So
I just
just
want to
need
be
to know
here. so-
location.
Oh, okay, did I not put the on there? I put it on the MLS number. so-
Oh, you did, yeah. I just haven't been able to see that. Okay, okay. Everybody's like, we have, I know we all got the same
We got-
email, but I was just
I guess
asking
we gotta
if
get out of
people were
here.
doing
I'm sure it was
that.
popular. So,
Jeez.
go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, you're okay.
Yeah, that's all for the
Do you have a
taking.
few
Go
minutes?
ahead.
Okay,
Hi, Dan.
So right down here.
New agent orientation today?
Yeah.
This one.
Yes,
What
so,
time is it?
well, I just was thinking I would do it like right now in my office, so if you can come with me in my office in
Yeah,
just a minute,
absolutely.
let me just get the computer and stuff shut down there.
You want to go back?